even though smart minds do think alike, even you and me didn't see this trade coming the other day. Ryan O'Reilly and Noel Acciari traded to the Toronto freaking Maple Leafs. I did not know that Toronto had as much cap space as they did going into this trade. I didn't realize that they had as much cap space as they did after this trade until someone brought it up and I actually double checked it. They still have $4 million in cap space to make another move, but we'll get back to that in a second. The Toronto Maple Leafs added Ryan O'Reilly and Noel Acciari. Jesus, man. And this is a 3-team trade where the Minnesota Wild were the third team to take on some cap to get a draft pick. The floor is yours, Liam.
Yeah, I mean, the Maple Leafs acquire a former Conn Smythe winner, Stanley Cup champion, and Ryan O'Reilly having a poor season with the St. Louis Blues, but who isn't having a poor season with the Blues outside of our beloved Pavel Buchnevich, of course. But again, I digress. But Ryan O'Reilly is a terrific two-way player when he's on his game. And you know what? Maybe going to a winning team, a team that is atop, their own division in the Atlantic, like the Maple Leafs are, could rejuvenate the player and where he's at this season. And I wouldn't be surprised if O'Reilly goes in there, steps in, adds to the center depth, and really, makes the Toronto Maple Leafs attack formidable. When you combine John Tavares, Austin Matthews, now Ryan O'Reilly, Mitch Marner, Willie Nylander. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, this is a deep, deep forward group. And, I think we should also take into account that they acquire Noel Acciari as well. Acciari is a good player. Acciari can play. And he is an ideal bottom six forward, and you need more of those when you head towards the Stanley Cup playoffs. I don't care what your depth chart looks like. You could always use more, and we'll get into that in regards to our New York Rangers. I won't give anything away. But yeah, Noel Acciari is a big time pickup, as is Ryan O'Reilly. And I think if you're Kyle Dubas, the fact that 75% of Ryan O'Reilly's cap hit is retained, and you give up a 4th-round pick, a 1st-round pick, I guess a mid-level prospect in Vitaly Abramov, and another prospect, that's a win. Yeah, if you're the Maple Leafs, it really is.
I remember
Good
we
trade.
talked about Vitaly Abramov once upon a time on this podcast
We did.
in a former trade. And unfortunately, nothing really ever ended up happening with them NHL wise.
Well, you never know. Never
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, man. But just to talk about what the St. Louis Blues acquired, apart from Mikhail Abramov, they also got Adam Gaudette, who is basically the epitome of a fringe AHL NHL player. He's very good in the AHL, but can't really stick in an NHL lineup. Like you said, a first, a third, and a second, and the Minnesota Wild obviously get, the 4th-round pick for the salary retention. So, and the Maple Leafs also got Josh Pillar, a center prospect who is 21 years old, undrafted from last year. Nope, excuse me. I am mistaken. Drafted in the 4th round of 2021.
Well, good trade. And, good for the Blues too, to get 3 draft picks back. As well as, a mid-level prospect in Vitaly Abramov that could potentially, make an impact at the NHL level. I mean, Adam Gaudette as well, like you said, fringe AHL, NHL player. I think he's having a really impressive season with the Marlies. No, was he with the Marlies? Who was he with?
Um, Actually, that's a good question. I
With
would be
okay,
way
but
more on my game today, but I'm just absolutely
me
shot.
too. But regardless, he's having a solid season in the American Hockey League, and like you said, just couldn't put it together at the NHL level.
It was the
But again,
Marlies.
it was the Marlies, and it was a good trade. For all sides, if you ask me. I think Toronto, of course, gets the best players in the trade. I think St. Louis adds to their draft stock. And look, this is a deep draft class in 2023. So to be able to stock up first round picks, look, they got one of either Dallas or the Rangers first round picks in the Tarasenko trade. They got the Maple Leafs first round picks. And you know what? It's going to be late because both of those teams, all three of those teams for that matter, are, expected to go semi deep in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So look, if you're St. Louis and you get a second and a third round pick as well, also a conditional third round pick, right? Conditional fourth that turns into a third if the Rangers make the playoffs. They are really stocking up here and they have the potential to either move up or, catch a prospect that might slip into the later rounds. So good for the Blues.
Now, the question becomes with the Maple Leafs, they did end up making this trade, which is the quote unquote big splash, at least for them this season. Do they still trade for a defenseman? I think they do, because I think that's still an area that needs to be addressed, especially, like I said, they still somehow have over $4 million in cap space due to the players that are on LTIR and their cap hits. Who do you think they add?
Who's on LTIR for them right now?
On LTIR for the Maple Leafs are the following: Jake Muzzin, as I think we all knew. They also have Matt Murray, Nick Robertson, and Victor Mete, with a cumulative LTIR cap hit of basically 11.85 million.
That's because Matt Murray makes a ridiculous 6.25, correct?
Yep.
That's insane. But yeah, look, the fact that Matt Murray, I mean,
Actually, no. Surprisingly, his cap hit is only 4.687.
4.6. So he was signed by 4.6 by 6, on his original contract with Ottawa, not 4 by 6 million.
It felt like
But
6
again,
million.
yeah, it felt like 6 million for sure with the way he's played, especially this season too. And if it, I just want to put this out there too. If it hadn't been for Ilya Samsonov this year, the Maple Leafs goaltending situation would be much more of a story than it is. Just want to put that out there. But as far as who they add, especially on the back end, I could see like a low level defenseman, Luke Shen with Vancouver, just get somebody to shore up the bottom pairing. I think they're really done with depth pieces in their bottom six because I think, believe it or not, O'Reilly slots in at your third center slot, right? And Acciari probably slots in at your 4C. So, I think their forward group is pretty much set. Maybe they want to add another goaltender. I don't know what goaltender would be worth it to where they wouldn't have to give up too much asset wise. But maybe if they just want to add some depth. But besides that, I think the Maple Leafs are done as far as significant additions are concerned.
Yeah, I think
But
I would
Kyle
agree with
Dubas
you.
had a W deadline. He did good. He did good because you know what? Austin Matthews is on the brink of leaving, for unrestricted free agency. And, he had to really add the right pieces. And you add a proven winner in Ryan O'Reilly and Noel Acciari, who had been to his fair share of playoff games as well.
Yeah, no, like you just said, this was definitely a W for Kyle Dubas and Maple Leafs. As much slack as we give him, and well, deservedly so. I mean, I think even he realizes that this could very well be his last season as a GM if they don't get past the first round.
He had to put all the chips in, and he did. And Maple Leafs fans should be happy. And you know what? I think Chris Drury kind of set a precedent for other general managers when he set out that morning and acquired Vladimir Tarasenko, pretty far away from the trade deadline. I think he sent a message saying, you know what? I'm not going to wait until trade deadline day at 2:59, I'm going to strike now while the iron is hot and while these teams are selling. And I think the Toronto Maple Leafs and Kyle Dubas followed that narrative. And I think that's going to lead to a strong performance down the road and in the playoffs. I know I say it every season that this could be the Maple Leafs year where they get out of the first round. I really like their chances, even if it's against Tampa Bay. With their roster, and if Ilya Samsonov is playing like he is, only goaltending can keep them back.
I was just about to bring that up because I was going to say, this of all years, like I said, currently February 19th, as we're recording, this of all years would be the year that the Maple Leafs finally win around, when they don't have a true starting caliber goalie. As well as Samsonov has played, he does not have a pretty much any playoff success because he's only played about 7 games. So could they be the shocker of the year? Possibly. Maybe.
They could. They got the roster to do it. They just need their superstars to show up, and they need a rejuvenation out of Ryan O'Reilly. That's all they need, and they need their goaltending to stand up.
I
I think
remember make
defensively, they're fine. To be honest, they're fine defensively. I like their decor. I like their coaching. I like their goaltending. I don't like their depth at goaltending, but I like their depth there. But I like their starter there, Ilya Samsonov. And you know what? There are strikers on this, on this attack for the Maple Leafs, So look, they add to that here with Ryan O'Reilly and Noel Acciari. Good for them. Good for Dubas too.
I remember back in 2020 we were talking about, obviously after Tampa won the cup and everything, the running joke for a little bit was they would finally win the cup under these circumstances. And just to make it a little bit funny, that like I said, this would absolutely be the year the Maple Leafs win around when everyone thinks their window is slammed shut. Because hell, look at the 2018 Washington Capitals. Everyone thought that as soon as they lost to Pittsburgh in 2017, their window was slammed shut. And well, they ended up winning the cup the next year. I'm not saying the Maple Leafs are going to win the cup, but if this is another joke, if they win the first round, Maple Leafs fans are going to act like they won the cup because this is going to be like a New York Jets playoff win. People are just going to go absolute ape shit, batshit crazy.
Well, I mean, it hasn't happened for so long, Shades, that when it does happen, the reaction is going to be pretty much out of this world. And I'm going to be happy for Maple Leafs fans, to be honest. I think every fan base deserves to, have their moment, and they don't deserve to live in misery for as long as they have. Good regular seasons, and then short-lived time in the playoffs. That's really soul crushing from season to season, and the fact that they've had to go through that since what 2003. I can't imagine.
Well, I mean, we're going on what's going to be 13 years next year as a New York Jets fan. So we sort of understand Toronto Maple Leafs fans' pain.
Yeah, we sort of get it for sure. I mean, personally, and I know this isn't the same for you. I don't really care about football, that much, or I'm not as invested as I am with the Jets as I am with the Rangers. If the Jets, miss the playoffs, it's, I mean, sucks. I'll root for them. But better luck next year. I think the Jets, for that matter, just on that note, are going to have a great year next year, hopefully with a new quarterback. But but if the Rangers, don't make the playoffs from season to season, that will be a lot more of a tougher time. So
Yeah, no, that would be bad. But end all be all, I think this is if the Maple Leafs lose in the first round again, I think Kyle Dubas is done. They clean house and they start all over from a managerial standpoint. But time will tell. But you and I, like we said earlier, are giving Kyle Dubas credit because this is 100% a win so far. And if they do add a defenseman like Luke Shen, they're putting themselves in a pretty good position, not only to beat Tampa, but to make a run.